Welcome to RPG Book Club. On today's episode...
It ends on such a down note. I mean, that's what life is, a series of down endings.
Hello and welcome to RPG Book Club, the podcast where we play small chunks of a video game and talk about how it makes us feel. But today is a bonus episode, and we'll be talking about the entirety of Eternal Senia and talking about how that makes us feel. Eternal Senia is a free game on Steam made using RPG Maker, and it's really good. And I'm excited to talk about it with you guys. I had already played it before, so I'm going to let Spiff kind of run everything. I didn't even introduce my name. I'm Sam Allman, by the way.
I'm Elias Sailor Eli Warren.
And I am Michael Spiff Webben.
Yeah, so Rizzo couldn't make it this week, and we have the rule with us hosts, if you can't make it 2 weeks in a row, we're not going to make you then play 3 works of shit the next week, so we take a week off, and that's when these bonus episodes come out. But Spiff will be taking the lead here, and then I will giggle, even though he's already beat it too, but by now. But I'll giggle when he's like guessing things along the way. I get to be the Rizzo from Persona 3 right now.
Exactly, you do. So this game, I had never heard of it until Sam mentioned playing it.
I had neither.
For this bonus episode. And my first thought was, did someone misspell Eternal Sonata? But this game's a lot better than Eternal Sonata, frankly. Eternal Senia is, it's an RPG Maker game. What I did was, I wasn't going to read like a review or anything of it, but I thought, I want to like experience the game in a typical way. So before just downloading it on Steam, I read through the Steam page, and it's very clear, a few things right off the bat. First of all, the person who made this game is Chinese, and it was clearly originally written in Chinese and then translated probably by the same group of 3 or 4 people into English. But of course, they're not professional. They're not a big studio, so the English is not super great, but it's functional and it's often very poetic, actually. The second thing is that this is obviously just a passion project. I don't know if it's he. The person who makes the game mentions in the description that like a lot of things in the game are inspired by their love for Ragnarok Online, which is a really beloved game that I've never played, but I know people swear by it. It was an MMO in the 90s. So
he doesn't say it in the page, but playing the game, he also definitely likes Ys. The first couple of Ys games control almost exactly like this.
Yeah. Funny, I haven't played an Ys game, but as I was playing this, I was like, I feel like this is how Ys is. It really is. So you download the game, you start it up, and boy howdy, it makes a good first impression.
The
title, I'm weird about video game title screens. I make a very big deal out of them. Like, if a game has a great title screen, I'm like, I am on board, and vice versa. Like, best title screens, Metroid Prime, Final Fantasy 15 actually has a great title screen.
It does.
Anyway, so this game, it's got this nice art, and it's got this absolutely killer music. It's like this pretty little piano music, and you're like, I bet the beat's about to drop in a second, and it does. and it turns out it is the game's main theme. It's not just the title screen, because pretty early on you'll start hearing the song during the game. So it's the game's main motif. And Eli, why don't you tell us what you learned about the song?
So we did this as a Let's Play. We didn't get through the whole game, unfortunately, because it was a bit longer than we were initially led to believe. It's okay.
I'm sorry. When last night when Rizzo was like, "Hey guys, I can't make it tomorrow. I barely got started on chapter 6," and we're like, "Well, there's no way you can do that in the 3 hours you'll be awake before we record tomorrow." So I was like, well, we can do Eternal Senia. It's like 2 hours long, so it'll be super easy to do. And they're like, okay, cool. And then both of them didn't get started right away. Both of them waited till about 2 hours before bedtime.
I had to pick Ken up from the train station, and we were gonna record it as a Let's Play. So I'm like, if it's only 2 hours long, that's not gonna be too bad. We'll get our recording done. 2 hours and 45 minutes pass, and I go, Sam, it's too long. What's going on? I don't understand. Did I fuck it up? And he's like, shit, it's 4 hours.
Yeah, I don't remember what my game clock was at the end, but from start to finish, in terms of my bedtime, it was about 5 hours or so.
Yeah.
But
you also did a lot of the side quest stuff.
Yeah,
we were reading all the dialogue like out loud and making jokes about it. So of course that was also taking us a bit longer. So we're listening to the title theme, and Ken is like humming with it, and he's like, I recognize this song. I'm like, I've literally never heard this song. I'm pretty sure it was just written for this game. And he's like, no, beautiful. And I'm like, I don't know what you mean. And so like after we got done recording, he says, hey, come out here. And so I go out to his desk, and he's got a YouTube video playing. It is a Christian song called Beautiful, Beautiful by Francesca Battistelli. But that explains why I had no idea what he was talking about, because I don't freaking listen to Christian music.
Now, when you say Christian song, do you mean like CCM, like contemporary Christian music? Like modern, like praise and worship rock music?
I don't know. It didn't sound rockish, but it sounded like it was definitely more of a contemporary Christian song rather than like a church hymn or something.
Right.
My headcanon is that Francesca Battistelli is a huge Eternal Senia fan.
That's probably it. That's it.
That's interesting, though, because I've heard, lots of churchy music, and I actually haven't heard it, but I'll probably go listen to it later.
Yeah, I will.
Cool.
Because it owns. It's such a good song.
I'll link the YouTube video for that song in the host channel if you guys want to listen to it. Actually, I could just link it in the regular channel, but whatever. But yeah, I was like, wow, that's really interesting, and it makes sense because of the setting of the game. The game has a lot of Judeo-Christian imagery, but weirdly enough, it's not as ostentatious as it is in like Xenogears or Evangelion, where it's like really in your face. But it is constant, and weirdly enough, it feels like it belongs there. It actually it's not like jarring, like here's a cross for no reason. It's just like, yeah, this is cool. This is just a consistent thing in the game. So anyway, the title screen's good. Okay. One more thing about the title screen. The some of the wording is cool. After like each option has a little subheading. So under start it says new adventure, and under load it says keep on finding, and under exit it says end of memory. And I'm like, hell yeah, I love this kind of writing. This just sort of like vague use of loaded phrases. It often happens in translation, but I've seen people who originally write in English also use this kind of writing. It's just sort of a funny, weird, abstract, highly emotional kind of writing.
There was one that I saw on Twitter where somebody had made a joke about it, and their joke was like, English sentences that I'm 100% certain have never been said by any native speaker is my JRPG aesthetic. And one of the pause screens in this game that she did, exiting the pause screen was like, break this moratorium or something like that, which is like amazing. And I'm like, well, I mean, all of those words are correct.
That's the thing. It's so funny. So anyway, it's just really hip and chic. So you start the game, and right off the bat, you have this little sprite character in a room, and she starts talking, and her text box identifies her as being Senia. So there we go. That's half the title explained.
Yep.
Senia is the main character. She's like, well, here I am in the Tower of Eternity, and I'm like, wow. Already, huh?
2 for 2.
You're like in the final TP Tropes would call it the amazing Technicolor Battlefield final dungeon, and I just started the damn game.
We already have a title. We're in the final dungeon. That's a short ass game, apparently.
All right, cool.
It truly was a Shawshank Redemption.
Exactly. So Senia is on some kind of quest, and they don't tell you much. She's just like, here I am. I am at the Tower of Eternity. I hope that I can. I don't know what she says, but she's like, it's kind of scary, but I'm gonna do it, you know? So you're like, all right, she's on some kind of quest to this tower. Um, right off the bat, the game starts tutorializing you a little bit with how combat works. It's really cool. As Sam said, it plays like Eve, which I haven't played. But you just but it also plays like For the Frog the Bell Tolls, which I have played and it owns.
I've never heard of that.
I've never heard of.
It's a Square. No, wait, is it Square or Nintendo? Anyway, it's for the Game Boy, and it's literally made using the Link's Awakening engine.
Okay.
Anyway, it rocks. So you just walk up to people and you hit them. If you walk up to them, you hit them. But every time you hit them, they hit you. They hit you back. So like anytime you attack, you will take some amount of damage. But right at the beginning of the game, they're doing this like FF7 Sephiroth thing where you do like 10 gazillion damage and they hit you back for 1 damage, which is fun. And right off the bat, I'm like, okay, they're doing that thing where I'm really strong and then later I'm not going to get strong. The game's music continues to totally just every song is just a banger. Like, I guess you could criticize it for lack of variety. Like, there's only 2 kinds of songs in this game. There's like sensitive piano music and absolute banger, but whatever, it works. Then you fight like some literal blobs. Like the enemy sprites are just like a tiny little circular slime.
It's your
around.
generic RPG slime, basically.
Yeah, and then you fight some Sans Undertales, and they're just skeletons. But honestly, like they are short and have very big heads.
Yeah,
so like legitimately, they look like
the game only came out a few months before Undertale too. I found that out because Ken and I were commenting about stuff like that, and he's like, "Did this game come out before Undertale?" And I'm like, "Oh yeah, I'm sure it did." And I was thinking it was like way older. No, it's like 3 months older than Undertale.
Yeah, from the game's credits,
my new headcanon,
it becomes clear that it does use a lot of open source libraries. So the main sprites, like all the important art, I'm pretty sure is original, but things like these enemies are probably using previous libraries.
My headcanon, to go with my earlier headcanon, is that the guy who made Undertale is a really big Eternal Senia stan.
Oh yeah.
Oh, nice. Yeah, I believe it. Sans Undertale actually came from this game originally.
Yeah, that's it. 3 months before Undertale came out.
Undertale actually was about zombies until this game came out, and he's like, "Hold on, guys, I got a brand new idea."
No more zombies. It's skeletons now.
Skeletons all the way down.
I don't know what is libraries and what's original, but I know there's definitely a mix. And I mean, it's just a skeleton, like whatever, you know. So you start playing, and again, it's just you walk into the enemy, you kill them all in one hit, they hit you. It's fun. Your walk speed is very fast, which is nice. And then you have the first boss. I put the boss in quotes because it's a cutscene. She fights the boss in a cutscene. And as I sort of predicted, her sword breaks. So I'm thinking, oh, now she's going to do normal damage. And sure enough, she did normal damage after that point. So let's see. Is there any dialogue or anything in that boss?
I think there was some, but it was just about, like, my sword broke.
She's like, I got to try my best to beat the boss. Yes. So you go through just basic like tower graphics, like, you know, bricks, stairs, etc. And then you go through a door, and now you're in like the dark void of nothingness with stars behind you and stuff. And it's just a straight staircase that goes from bottom to top. And I forgot to get a screenshot of it, but it's whatever. It's pretty simple. It's like a thin staircase with nothingness all around. And it goes on for a while. Do y'all remember that? You have to hit up for like 30 straight seconds.
It takes a while to get through.
Yeah, but one thing that I forgot to mention is, even though after that point you start doing a regular amount of damage, you still take like 1 damage from everything. And I'm thinking to myself, I bet later that's going to change, and a pretty obvious prediction. So after you go up the big old staircase, you get into like cool, like you're outside now, like sky tower where you can see the sky behind, and there's like balconies. There's these cool foreground pillars that I took a screenshot of. At this point, I learned what kind of game this is because I accidentally I accidentally like went to another screen before I'd finished exploring, and I went the wrong way, but it transitioned anyway, and then it wouldn't let me backtrack. But I realized very soon that this is the kind of game where like it doesn't matter. Like if it's not going to let me backtrack, then that means that there wasn't anything important there. You know? Yeah, so then you get to the first actual boss of the game, which is a dragon. Did anybody have trouble with this boss?
No.
I think the first boss I had trouble with is I vaguely remember it being like a Grim Reaper-y thingy.
He's
there towards the end.
Called Death. Yeah, that one.
I think the Warlock gave me some trouble.
The Warlock is tough. I call him in my notes a Dracula. So when we get to the Dracula, that's who I'm talking about.
That's pretty accurate.
That's the Warlock. But at any rate, so there actually is gameplay here, though. So because earlier I'm just like, so you walk into the enemies. What's the game gonna be? But yeah, so the way this guy works is he doesn't move. He stands still. And you walk up to him and you hit him and he hits you back, just like we were talking, but not for very much. But he does shoot this nasty fireball, and he just shoots it every such and such seconds, and it goes in a straight line. And at first I was like dodging the fireball and then hitting his face. Then I realized, wait a second, I can just hit him from the left.
Yeah, just stand on his side.
Yep.
So then you just wail on him, and he shoots the fireball, and it doesn't go in the right direction. And you're just like, I'm good. But it's one of those battles you can't win because you're doing absolute horseshit damage. So there's a cutscene where the dragon charges past her, and she dodges it and runs past. So already the game's establishing its rhythm as being like very, very not like plot heavy, which is to say that there's like a lot of plot happening all the time, but very like there's a lot of little bitty cutscenes. Like there's like a 15-second cutscene like every couple screens. So it's got a cool rhythm, you know, where like you're not expecting to just do like a dungeon for an hour before anything happens. It's cool.
Yeah.
And
then like on top of that, I don't know if we haven't gotten that far yet, but like each like there's like 4 or so sections of the tower, and each one of those is like fairly short too, and those are also divided into like 3 or 4 screens. So you have like each screen will have like a cutscene on it. So like going from cutscene to cutscene or like room to room or stuff like that. It's like really small and bite sized, which is how like I was playing it at work, like on my breaks and stuff, and I could get like something accomplished in that time.
Yeah, which is nice.
Yeah, because a lot of times, and like Space Funeral included, short RPG games will be like the 2 dungeons, and like that's the game. This one manages to like give you a lot of actual content, and it's incredibly tiny bite size.
Yeah, it's so fast paced. Like you feel like you've gone on this long journey because each area is so small that there are a lot of them. Also, just a ton of music. I feel like each area probably has each of the areas of the dungeon, which of each of the 4 main levels, probably has like 3 different field tracks. And sometimes there's not even a reason. It's not like, oh, you went to a new place that looks different with the graphics. It's just like, hey, you were in the forest before. You're still in the forest, but now there's different music. Because we just wanted to have a ton of great music. So Senia runs into a corpse, and I forget the exact dialogue, but she's just like, oh God, a corpse. Like, this is serious. Like, this place is dangerous. I hadn't thought about it because I clearly ran into this dungeon maybe somewhat hastily and recklessly, but now that I'm seeing a corpse, I'm like, wait, right, I could die here. And then
like prior to this, you really feel that she's like, I got my awesome armor, I got my awesome sword, I got my I don't even know if it's talked about her curse yet, but she's like, I've got my my curse under control. I'm going to be the hero. I'm going to go save my sister.
Yeah.
And this is when she's like, okay, maybe I was a little hasty.
Actually,
I've been a sick kid for the past like 10 years, and so maybe I'm not prepared to go and fight these dragons.
Maybe
and stuff.
like a literal 16-year-old, contrary to what most RPGs might tell you, is not equipped to save the world from some sort of evil demon king.
Surprise!
No, not really.
So anyway, so she goes. So this is where she says, "Sis, ... where are you?" So that's actually how you know that she's searching for her sister. And then she says, "Why did you leave me behind?" So you got this really economical storytelling. It's cool.
Yeah. That's one thing I love about it is I feel like there's so much story in this game, but almost all of it is those two sentences tell you like 5 paragraphs of information.
Yeah.
And like that's how it gets through almost all of it.
Yeah.
Which like knowing that it comes from an Asian language as well, like that, like just at least like language wise, Asians are like incredibly efficient and lazy with how they talk. Like in Japanese, you drop like the subject most of the times, the verb, and like all of the helping words, and you pretty much just like cat pretty.
Most conversations are just based on context clues in Japanese.
Yeah, and so I feel like that like helped. This writing being so economical and getting so much from so little is because like that's par for the course when you're speaking in Chinese.
It's just snappy.
Yeah.
So you find a better sword, in which case the game is like, here's how inventory works. You can equip stuff. One other thing in this game is you never have like a shop or anything. Anytime you get a new sword, it's always better than your old one. So you just go to the equipment menu, hit the best equipment button, and you're good. You don't have to juggle numbers or anything. I did it first. Like I'd look like, oh, which of these numbers is going up? And then I realized it's always going to go up.
Yeah.
Yeah. There's I'm vaguely remembering this. It's been a while since I actively played it. I refreshed myself half with these notes, half with like a let's play last night. But I vaguely remember there being some people that are weak to something later, and you doing a little bit of like shuffling like your holy sword or something, but I might just be making that up.
Thing, I didn't figure it out. Maybe it is though. Oops. Yeah. So at this point, you fight the dragon again. But since you found a better sword and leveled up a few times, it's actually a real boss fight. You actually hit him for realsies, and he dies eventually. But even though it wasn't hard from a gameplay perspective, the plot apparently decided that this was a hard battle because her fancy armor breaks during the battle. So at this point, the game is for real now, right? Like you do regular damage, you take regular damage, and you're actually playing the game for this game for real now. So then she beats the boss, and another economical storytelling thing, this really cool, obviously sinister, dark energy shows up, and she's engulfed in it, and she passes out. And then there's a flashback, which you can tell because the graphics look sad. And also the first person to speak is labeled Child Senia by the game. So you're like, oh, that's okay. I see where we're at. That's Child Senia. Thank you for telling me, game. Turns out her backstory is quite simple. Her whole village was destroyed by baddies, by this big dragon lord. And then he's about to kill Senia as well. And then this girl who the art does a great job of showing that she's a priest. She just dresses nunnishly and has a cross on her neck, and
but she's like a Chrono Crusade priest and not like a Roman Catholic priest.
Yeah.
Like she definitely is like a battle cleric from like anime and manga.
So she wrecks the Dragon Lord with a magic, and that's the funny thing because I was like, maybe the art is just making her look like a priest because that's what clerics look like. But then it turns out she actually is literally a priest. They're not just using that aesthetic because it's cool. So she actually is a priestess of a thing called the Sacred Sanctum. And her name is Magaleta, which I could never remember the entire game. I was like...
No. Like, even when I was rewatching the Let's Play, I was like, oh, yeah, that was her name. Like, I think like, in my brain, I always pronounced it Magdalena because that's what my guitarist in my band... and that's what my guitarist in his band calls his girlfriend Alex because that's her middle name. He calls her that when, like, she's being annoying. He's just like, Magdalena. And so it stuck. Yeah. And it's closer to a real name.
It's such a weird name. And I was calling her Margalita, but I don't know. Yeah.
Oh, I don't know. Yeah, and I called it like there's Magdalena, there's Magdalene, there's Margarita, there's Macarena, there's Mags Mikkelsen. There's just every time I would try to take notes because they call her Mag in the game for short. So every time I take notes, I legitimately was like, I cannot remember this person's name, but
Margarine.
Whatever. So Margarine. Senia is like, my name's Senia, and Mag is like, Senia Nia, and then she's like, hi Nia, and I'm like, wait, you can't just like decide to call her Nia for no reason. Seems a little rude.
Sure, why not?
But turns anyway, so then they go to but then she adopts her and takes her to the sanctum, and then the title screen music plays, which is how you know that that's the game's main theme.
Hell yeah.
She went missing 3 days ago with no message or anything. So turns out that's the setup. She was taken in as an orphan. Her adopted big sis went missing 3 days ago, and now she's here.
And I also love that it gives this to you after the like prologue of gameplay.
Yeah.
Like this could have been the like Star Wars crawl at the beginning, and you would have had this, and would have been like faded 3 months later or 3 days later, and then you're in the tower and you're doing your stuff. But they were like, no, let's drop you in, and you can play the game and realize that like the music fucking slays, so you're gonna be here, and then and then we'll give you the background, because like I love Okami, but Okami's biggest like drawback that you always have to tell people is like, you have to get through like the first 3 hours, not because like that's when the game is good, but that's when you can control your character for the first time. There's so much of this stuff at the beginning at Okami.
Yeah, but there's also so much throughout that game. That game is just like, hey, what if you had a really fun game, but every 30 minutes you had to just read reams of dialogue, and it's not even that good.
Yeah.
Oh, God.
Like it's like over when you finish the game, it feels awesome, but there are definitely like to spoil a little bit that we'll talk about at the end of next episode of Rogue Galaxy, but from chapter 6 to chapter 7 there's like a 3-hour movie you sit back and watch. Okami does that like every single dungeon pretty much.
Yeah, oh my God. Like I enjoyed playing Okami, but I'm probably never going to play it again, because the thought of having to deal with that, I'm just like, ugh. But this game is way more straightforward. One great example of how straightforward it is. It's also straightforward about being a game, which is cute. Like they don't try to like personify the game mechanics or like make them diegetic. So for example, when you get to the first real boss in the game, you get a screenshot. I'm looking at the screenshot right now. You get a screen that literally says, or a text box that says, "In the next room is the boss fight." Parentheses. It is recommended to save before entering. And then you can choose, "I am not ready yet," or you can choose "Onward." And like lots of games do that, but most games would like try to pretend like it was somehow in universe writing. And this game doesn't even bother. They're just like, "Fuck it, the boss is happening. Hello."
Yeah, like
in case you couldn't tell, you're literally standing on a magical Star of David.
Like usually, like you'll get to a final save point, and like Sora's inner monologue voice will be like, "You feel like this is like you've come so so far, and you don't know if you can ever turn back." This one is just like boss fight next room, okay?
And that's just and it owns. There's some really cool writing about how, like, just again that sort of weird, vague, ambiguous sort of writing where her sister is her light of hope and she has to chase after the light. And despite it's not, despite it's not English as a first language, sort of weird writing, it's nice. I really like it.
Yeah,
it's evocative.
Yeah. One thing I remembered, I may have said this at the very beginning, is I remember the writing not being like as Englishy when I was playing through it, because you buy into it. Like the music starts playing, you kill a couple of your first mobs, and you're in the world, and you don't realize that like there's like a typo in like every line.
You do when you're playing it as a let's play and you're reading all the dialogue. I can say that much.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah. Like there's this quote by Carrie Fisher, who she said that George Lucas writes a really good book, but it was really hard to perform his dialogue because like the sentence, "I recognized your foul stench when I came on board," is like a funny thing to read, but when you're trying to say it out loud, you would have been like, "I thought I smelled you." Like that's the English there.
Well, you've heard Harrison Ford's version of that story, right? Oh, it's hysterical. He I forget, he was just in the middle of some scene, and he turns to George and he goes, George, you can write this, but you can't make me say it. Or he's like, or something like, you can write this, but you sure can't say it. Something like that. You should look it up. It's hilarious. Classic Harrison Ford. At any rate, though, yeah. So one funny thing is these flashbacks in the game. Turned out they're not just flashbacks for us, the player. These are actually dreams that she's having when she faints after fighting a boss and getting the weird dark energy all up in her. Which is funny because it's like, wow, you sure are dreaming of things that are A, very literal, B, in chronological order, and C, the exact things that us, the player, need to know to understand this game. Very convenient dreams, let's just put it that way. But she makes some sort of dialogue where she like refers to like, oh, I remember that happening, this thing that I just dreamed about. Yeah, so you get to the game's first actual for real this time boss, and yeah, you run into him and he does a big attack that you dodge, but if you just keep attacking him, he'll eventually kill you because you get hurt every time you attack him. So basically the way most of the bosses in this game are going to work is there's going to be a bunch of little mobs and you kill them and hopefully they drop health, and you keep doing that while dodging the big guy's attack. And honestly, even though this is the first boss and I didn't like die or anything, it wasn't trivial, at least for me.
Yeah.
Yeah. It was a bit rough.
I really like.
It was a little bit rough, but once I figured out killing the little guy's dropped health, like that was a big help. So. Yeah.
It required like
one thing that the bosses do in this game that I really like is they're more of like environmental hazards than like a mob you're interacting with. Like they're a huge sprite in the middle. They don't really move. They just have battle animations flashing around them. But then like you're dodging mobs, you're killing little mobs. It shows on the ground where the attack's about to be, and you're like constantly moving back and forth. And then when you have an opening, you just run up to the top middle of the screen, and like hurting the boss is not as important as surviving the environmental hazards, and I thought that was really cool.
Sorry, I was going to say I think the biggest hurdle for me was just recognizing that every boss, no matter how big they are, just has a 1 square hitbox, and that's it.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's not obvious.
Yeah, actually, everything in the game, period, even whether it takes up 1 square or whether it takes up 2 squares, it has a 1 square hitbox. And this game does have grid-based movement, which is how every RPG Maker game is, even if you want to try to make it not be that way. It actually is possible to make an RPG Maker game that has half square grid movement, which is actually how Zelda 1 is as well, but you don't really notice. But yeah, it's just something you gotta deal with, and your movement speed is real fast. So like you'll be going to hit a bad guy, and then they'll move 1 square to the right, so now you're not in the right column to hit them, so you have to correct. And yeah, it's oh, fun fact, guys, I totally didn't think about this before I started playing, but the up arrow on my keyboard hasn't it hasn't existed for like a year. Like if you take the key off and literally all there is the little metal, like the metal pad that is the contact of which actually makes the button hit, that's all I have. So it's almost like a touch button. It's like I can touch it, but there's no feedback or anything. So I haven't played an action game on my computer in a very long time. So every time I go up, it's just like, it's so funny. I got 3 regular buttons and then literally a pad that recognizes when my finger is on it. So that was fun, real fun.
I'm glad you got through it at least.
Yeah, I mean, I've been using this keyboard. It's like I kept meaning to fix it, but then it's like eventually you just get used to it. It's like, oh yeah, I'm like if I want to go down on a Word document, I hit the down arrow. If I want to go up, I use the mouse and I click where I want to go. Whatever. I'm too lazy to fix it. So then there's another flashback. And in this one, Magalita, is mad at Nia because she's secretly doing swords. She's like practicing doing sword moves when Mag isn't there. And she says...
Question. I don't know if you remember. Does the text box say Nia Or does it say Senia?
Oh, at this point, her dialogue box probably says
Senia.
I didn't think about that. But Mag does exclusively call her Nia. Oh, I see why you're saying that.
Yeah.
Yeah, no,
I was just wondering, how far flashed back was this?
Yeah, no. This is like, so Senia at this point is, that is an important question, actually. She is still a half-sized sprite. She's still a babby in this scene. So it's not long after Magalita took her into the orphanage, probably. Yeah, so she's like, don't practice swords, it's dangerous. And Nia says to herself, not to Mag, that she wants to help Mag do demon hunting, which, who wouldn't?
And that's so much cooler than hanging around a church all day.
And apparently she just has to hang around at the church all day and wait for Mag to come home, which is scary because she's like, is she gonna get killed? Is she gonna be okay? I'm scared. I want to protect her. I'm tired of being protected. I want to get strunk, and I want to protect my big sis or whatever. Yeah. So you go into Magic Space Void. This is actually the first. Yeah. So earlier, when I said you were in a Magic Space Void, you weren't. You were just in a cool hallway. But at this point, you actually go into the Magical Space Void, which turns out is the door that, this is a tower, right? But like a lot of fantasy towers, it's so big that it's like it contains worlds. Have either of y'all played Final Fantasy Legend?
No, I have not.
That game owns the whole game. You're climbing up a giant 100-floor tower, and there's basically only 4 actual areas. There's every 25 floors is an actual significant area, and in between that it's just you go upstairs. But the areas are entire kingdoms, and
nice.
And it's cool. One of them is a fantasy kingdom. One of them is literally post-apocalyptic sci-fi kingdom. It's more like Yggdrasil, the World Tree, kind of idea.
Nice. Do you know if that game ever was remade, like how Final Fantasy Adventure was remade as Sword of Mana for the GBA? Is there a more modern version of that one, or is it just?
I'm not sure.
Go back to the GBA.
I'm not sure. I have the original Game Boy version. I know that some Saga games have been remade. No, you know what? I'm almost positive it has not. I think only some of the Romancing Saga games have been remade for iOS.
Okay.
Yeah.
I mostly was just curious because I've started attempting to play Dragon Quest I again, and then I played Sword of Mana back in the day without even knowing that Final Fantasy Adventure existed. And I've watched speedruns of Final Fantasy Adventure, and while it looks good and passable, the whole time I was like, man, Sword of Mana was such a good remake. And so I was just wondering if there was the option of playing the H or D version or whatever.
No, I don't think there is, which is too bad. But yeah, oh man, highly recommended. Yeah. It owns. And this game reminds me a lot of it because it's all in a big tower. So after you go through the void, you're in a magical fairy forest.
Yeah, I remember when this happened, because Tartarus is a really big tower, and every room in every chunk in Tartarus is different, but it's not. And so I was expecting okay, well now we're on the next part of the tower, and instead of gray tiles, we're going to have purple tiles or something. And then you step out into a huge expansive, at least for this game, forest, and I'm like, oh, okay, this this is a tardy box. This is not just a tower. This is a TARDIS.
Yeah, and there's people live here. They have a society. Yeah. It's not just a dungeon.
Yeah.
Which again is why I got those Saga vibes. So you're in, personally, my least favorite fantasy aesthetic, which is magical bullshit fairy elf forest. Not a fan. But
apologies to every druid from World of Warcraft that listens to our podcast.
Fuck you. No, I'm just kidding. We love you because you listen to our podcast, but not because you're a druid. Oh man, speaking of that, we just got to those fucking elf-ass druids in Rogue Galaxy as well.
We did.
Before there were not any. So there's this elf, and the elf shoots you with an arrow, and you can't cross the bridge because of the arrows, which I think, frankly, you probably could have.
Yeah.
But whatever.
Yeah.
But you learn, so then the game's battle system expands a little bit. Instead of just walking into people, you learn a skill. So it turns out this game does have 4 magical spells that you'll learn in each of the 4 main areas of the game. And they use MP, which recharges, and they do something besides just hitting people. So this is like a cool, it's like a forward teleport dash step. You warp forward like 5 squares, and you hit somebody, and they don't hit you back, which is important. You don't take that return damage. When you use any of your skills, actually. Yeah, and it's cool. It's a lot of fun. It's a good mechanic. Also, you can use it when you're not hitting bad guys to move faster, if you don't mind draining your MP, and then you don't have any when you need to fight.
And this part of the game is when it opens up to not, like, the first chunk is hallways, and there's, like, no really exploration, like not even like a choice of doors to take. But here in the forest, because you have this move, you see something that looks like a hallway, but then you see a chest that you can't reach, and then on the next screen there's like a decorative per se river, but if you're smart, you can teleport to the other side of the river to loop back and go and get that chest. And it, like, the game is still incredibly linear, like so much that, like you mentioned earlier, you pass through a door and you can't go backwards. To go backwards, you have to get to the end. There's a person, an NPC that can then teleport you back to the beginning of it, and you can do it again. But like that, like this move helps it be not completely linear. Like there's stuff, you have missables now, which is really cool.
Yeah, I honestly, it really falls in line with this sort of new school of RPGs that I really like. The big budget games did it for a while, like Final Fantasy X and 13 do it. Breath of Fire, Dragon Quarter, a lot of PS2 RPGs did this, like, what if we, instead of having all these trappings, these formal constraints of player agency and a world map and exploring, what if it was just a story and you just had a bunch of scenes, and some of the scenes are cutscenes, some of the scenes are dungeons, some of the scenes are boss battles, and you just play through it. And then that stopped happening because MMOs got really big, and also like open world games got big. So now all the RPGs are even the JRPGs are like huge open world with a zillion hours and side quests. But now I think a lot of the indie games have taken up the mantle, you know. So like obviously like Undertale. So yeah, the idea of just going on this, it really does feel like a stage play. Like you have a series of scenes, and the scenes have different kinds of gameplay in them. It's really cool.
That reminds me of this thing that I was reading, that Western RPGs, the role playing part of a role playing game is I create a character, and that character is me through this game. But in Japan, it's no, I am playing the role of Cloud Strife.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I'm going on Cloud Strife's adventure. And so this stage play type thing is we're not even bringing headcanon, much less emotional baggage or anything like that, to our character of Senia. We're just seeing what Senia's story is.
Yeah.
And I think that that's super awesome.
Yeah.
Just as a complete aside, it's not necessarily relevant, but it is something I remember.
No, it's cool. Like I love, don't get me wrong, like the idea of player agency and emergent gameplay and stuff like that is cool, and there's room for that, and a lot of games are great with that. But I also like games that just commit to their story and don't like coddle and don't like betray their own identity by acquiescing to these things that players demand that they be allowed to do. You know, like it's like some games, it's like, look, we know players are going to bitch that we didn't include a world map, but we're going to do it anyway because fuck that. We have a story to tell, and we're not gonna put something in there just because it's expected. So at any rate, you go through the dungeon, and I took 0 notes for the oh wait, I guess that guy, never mind. This NPC I guess shows up earlier than I thought. So you run into this NPC that just looks like a typical like little fairy sprite, and he goes, and he's like, or she, they're like, what's up? I'm the Facebook fan community admin for this game. And they're like, you should go to the Facebook page and get a code. And if you enter the code, I'll give you some items. And they're like, just so you know, it's just regular items. So like no pressure. But I do have items. So obviously I go to the Facebook fan page. Because
I didn't have to. There was a comment on the page on the Steam page that told me what to do.
Well, I did find the Facebook fan page because, frankly, I already like this game a lot, so I'm gonna like and subscribe. So I did, and I got the code, and they gave me a bunch of.
I went to the Facebook page and it said it didn't exist.
Okay, so here's the thing. So it took me a little bit of digging. So the number one page that you go to. This is a tip for all y'all who maybe aren't playing the game yet. The one that's just called like Eternal Senia fans, that doesn't have it. And then I looked at the URL and it was not the same as the URL that the text box said. So I type in the URL that the text box in this game says, and it says no longer exists. So I'm like, that's weird. Anyway, point is, if you search for Eternal Senia, like the second result, not the first one, it says Eternal Senia and it's got some Chinese characters. If you click on that one, it's right there.
Oh, okay. Well, we just went and looked up the code.
Also, I'm pretty sure it's 1213.
1215.
Yeah.
Oh, see, well, there it is. So just type that in. But you should like it on Facebook because it's good, and they need all the help they can get because they're a tiny little indie developer.
And supposedly they're working on a follow-up, which is cool.
Oh, hell yeah. I would love that. So as long
as it has this good of music, I'm down.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. So you see a fellow adventurer, this masculine-looking figure, like it looks like default male JRPG hero guy. And she's like, finally, maybe this fella knows something. What's up? And he's identified as the absent-looking adventurer. Also, I noted that he's cute, in my opinion. However, he attacks you, and she's just like, I guess we have to fight. So there's like an actual battle, and you actually kill him, which is sudden. But it's not one of those things where the game isn't adequately explaining its violence. She is like, stop attacking me, and then she's like, okay, fine, I'll attack you. She kills him, and then the black swirl happens again. So now I'm thinking, oh, every time she kills something besides just a random mob, she gets this black swirl. Maybe this is. Have you played Shadow of the Colossus?
I haven't played it actually. I watched a Let's Play of it, but I know enough.
Well, every time you heal the Colossus, the evil shit comes out of them and goes into you, and you're like, that seems bad.
Yeah.
I think that I don't want that to happen, and well,
sorry, princess. I'm not going to save you. This looks bad. I'm going to go talk to a priest, and I wish you the best of luck.
So then there's another flashback. At first, it seems like it's just being repetitive because she's like, I want to fight demons, and she's like, no, you can't fight demons. But this time, Mag sneakily follows. Nia sneakily follows Mag. And then my notes go on and on about the composition of this one screen. It's very, I said it reminds me of Twin Peaks. It's just like, it's an empty field with like a dilapidated building in one corner and like a lamppost in the middle and nothing else going on. It kind of owns. But the character portraits blocked half the screen every time they talked, so I couldn't get a screenshot. Because, of course, if they weren't talking, then I would have to, it wouldn't pause. So anyway, a mysterious baddie sneaks up. So Mag just wrecks like a bunch of demons. But then a bad guy sneaks up on Mag and starts to cast a spell on her, and Nia jumps in front and gets the spell on her, and the effect they use is the same effect that we've been seeing. The weird purpley darkness, and you're like, so maybe that's why she has this problem, is because this thing casts a spell on her. And then Mag kills the shit out of him. So then you're out of the flashback, which remember is also a dream. And the fairy is like, oh, that guy was possessed by Eternity, and Eternity basically is just your standard run-of-the-mill unimaginable power that corrupts that pretty much corrupts anybody who tries to actually use it for anything. But I feel like they did a really good job of making it feel like, I don't know, they really sold it as being mysterious, even though it's like just what I just said, which has been in so many stories. But it didn't just feel like the same old story. Like it really did feel like a scary like power that you're very invested in.
And like I think how they did it is it's the Tower of Eternity. Like Mag is like a priestess of eternity. Like it's been spoken in like good things so far. And this is like, no, it's actually bad thing. And I think that carries it really far, even though it's just spooky purple black stuff.
Yeah.
Which is...
And what's cool is that all the characters talk about it as if it is a neutral power that can be used for good, but it corrupts those who are like not, pure of heart or whatever the fuck. But I feel like mostly because of the graphics, it being like purple basically, because everyone knows purple means evil. I feel like the game does a great job of
my cinematography textbook in college was literally called "If it's purple, someone's gonna die."
Nice. But yeah, it's just like, even though they talk about how it's like we could use this power to do this great thing, I hope I don't get corrupted by it. The game itself presents the power as being maybe just like no good will ever come of it, basically. Which, slight spoiler, this game's story certainly bears out that initial impression. So let's see. The fairy's like, you should stop. Eternity's bad. You're gonna get fucked up. And Nia's like, no, I'm gonna save my sister. Typical stuff. The fairy's like, okay, fine, I'll help your sister. And Nia's like, I thought we were saving the fairy. And the fairy's like, oh yeah, let's do that first. So then you go to the arcane realm. So did any of you guys spend a lot of time in the arcane realm?
I think I did. That's the one where you have there's like 3 teleporters like in front of you. Is it that room?
Oh no, that's
okay.
Arcane Realm is the thing that every level has, where it's like a pseudo randomly generated challenge.
Yeah, it's sort of like a boss rush thing.
Yeah, I remember that now. Yeah.
Yeah, so this game has this cool thing where each of the 3 main levels has an alternate area you can go into, where basically you have like 10 or 15, I didn't count, but you have a bunch of rooms and they're randomly picked. So like in some rooms you hit a switch and then bad guys show up, or some rooms you might just get a treasure chest, or some rooms you have to hit crystals, and basically you go through like 10 of them, and at the end there's a boss, and the boss is usually pretty tough, like sometimes harder than the actual bosses. And the cool thing is the boss always drops the item that you need to craft the highest level weapon for that area, or highest level everything, highest level armor, highest level gauntlets, etc. So you can run this as much as you want. So if you want to do all the best crafting, you just run this sort of gauntlet mode like 3 or 4 times, and now you've got a zillion items, and you leveled up a bunch. And I, being me, did do that, and it was cool. The first time I fought Medusa, Medusa is actually the first boss in the game that does that thing that Sam mentioned earlier, where she's actually just like the literal background and is at the top of the screen. The boss earlier actually did have like a sprite, but Medusa starts the pattern that will continue, where the boss is like, it's really just like, it's just looming in the distance and you just hit it. And again, the bosses just get cooler and cooler. I, at this point, because I'm irresponsible, even though it was like literally midnight, I backtracked and did all the optional bosses, which were now super duper easy, and I maxed all my equipment, so that's great. Go.
How much
Eli, did you bother with that? Did you bother with that?
No, I mean, I went into the arcane realm, I fought Medusa and died, and went, okay, I've seen it, and then moved on with my life, because we didn't have a ton of time, so...
Yeah.
You're better than me.
So when you say you went back and did a bunch of the optional bosses, did you like find every chest and kill it? Like this game like has a battle recorder from Rogue Galaxy. Like did you do all of that stuff too?
So the way it works is each of the game's 3 main areas, has 3 optional quests. The first one is so you get to the end of this level, the forest. You open a chest, and I think the chest literally like it opens, and all of a sudden there's a character portrait, and it's clearly a mimic, like a monster chest, and he literally goes booyah, and Senia is like, oh shit, and he's like, nah, I'm just playing. I'm not a monster.
Which is so good.
So this guy is Jack in the Chest, who is master of chests. Yeah, and he's like, I hid 6 treasure chests in this dungeon. If you find all of them, I'll give you a tasty treat. And yeah, I did. I'd found 3 out of 6 because the other 3 are actually surprisingly well hidden and require you to be smart and use mechanics. I went back and found them. Then there's a slime who does the battle recorder where he's like, kill 10 of these, 15 of these, 12 of these, 3 of these. Yes, I did all of that. And then there's a legendary sheep. That's what his name is, legendary sheep.
I love it.
And he says, come back when all your gear is legendary. I was already 3 out of 4 for legendary, so I did that too. So I wasted a lot of time doing all these side quests.
Did you do it for every level too? Okay.
No, I did not because it was getting late and I had a job interview that I needed to get more than 4 hours of sleep for.
Yeah.
But I will say one thing: the game rewards you very well for the side quests. I would have been annoyed if it had, what you get is you get a violet crystal, which is cool because the game doesn't explain this until way later. But if you're paying enough attention, you notice, oh, that armor that got destroyed in like the second cutscene was made of violet crystal. So you get a violet crystal as a reward. You get an accessory that doubles how fast your MP goes. Oh, so one cool thing about this game, your MP goes up anytime you attack somebody. So you've used up all your MP, then you just do a bunch of normal hits, but remember, normal hits incur reflective damage. But then after you hit them enough times, your MP's back up. It's pretty cool. And then I got a bunch of stuff that like raised my agility, all sorts of. I felt very satisfied with the balance of it. So then you have the boss. Surprise, surprise! It was the Fairy Queen. The power of eternity made her bad. Did Eli? Did you play on hard mode?
No. I said onward, and I did that. I considered playing easy mode, but I didn't know how that would affect the game, so I was just like, onward.
Yeah. So this is I know it's a big shocker. I played on hard mode. It was not trivial. It took me maybe only like 2 tries, but still not nothing. So cool thing, the whole darkness thing, where like the darkness makes her faint, it starts to happen, but then it doesn't, and she doesn't faint. And the Fairy Queen turns good again.
Okay, when you beat her, yeah.
Yeah, she actually has a good reason. She's like, I was going to die soon because I'm old, and I was worried that the forest was going to not have someone to protect it, so I wanted the power of eternity. And I'm like, lady, it's clearly evil. So she says that you have 2 powers. The first power is a curse, and she stopped the curse. So that's why you didn't have faint, because she stopped that curse. Like, not like destroyed, but like held it at bay. And then Senia's second power is the power to absorb eternity. And pretty vague wording, absorb. Like, is that a good thing? Is it a bad thing? Does it mean you get extra evil? Does it mean you can contain it in a way that is productive and good? Who knows? So then you go to the next area, which is called the Demon Frontier.
I think it's all above board. Everything is happy and rainbows here.
Oh yeah, it's totally fine.
Yeah, it's super great. Demon Frontier sounds like a place I would love to go. One thing that's funny is you go to the little space zone, which is like the void interlude, but then you get to Demon Zone, and it's the same graphics.
Yeah.
So now it's just like, this whole area is just like Death, Galaxy, Void.
I thought for sure that meant that the game was ending soon.
Yeah, because like if you're foreshadowing this magical void world, and then you finally get there, you're like, this is the final level. But I kind of knew. I was like, this is only the second real level. I feel like the game probably has 3 real levels and not 2. I kind of had a hunch, which turned out to be right. But I agree, though, it definitely was indicating, right, that this was the end. But the problem is, it's like, I'm here to save my sister. What does the Demon Lord have to do with anything?
Yeah,
right. Anyway, you learn some more moves. You learn a ranged attack where you throw the fairy, which is pretty great. There's some more Sans Undertale. At this point, the game introduces a cool new mechanic. where these wizards will cast these lightning spells on you. And when they cast the spells, there's a little 9, like a 3x3 red, like semi-transparent square appears on the ground, basically showing you where the AoE lightning is going to be. Mm-hmm. And a few seconds later, it comes. So seeing these AoE squares appearing and then dodging them turns out is like the game's primary mechanic from here on. Like every enemy is going to start doing that, and they're going to do it a lot, and it's cool. Yeah, so next you get to the Corridor of Wisdom. Eli, this part, there's do you remember this part? There was like three different paths.
There was wisdom, strength, and courage, I think, something like that. It reminded me very much of Zelda.
Oh, right, like Zelda. Yeah, that's what they totally were. I forgot to write them down, but that's totally what it was. What's funny is that 2 of them were like a hallway followed by a boss. And then the third one was this whole thing.
It was a bunch of different puzzles. I did wisdom first, and then I expected every one of them to be like a bunch of puzzles. Like, wisdom included Pac-Man.
Yeah, I did it in the same order as you. So turns out, like, again, 2 of them are a hallway followed by a boss, and the third one is like a whole miniature quest. And I did the miniature quest one first as well. Yeah, it's got a part where you play Pac-Man. What was it? It's like... It's the 7 deadly sins is what happens. So this trial is greed. So it's like, collect all the little money bags, which are super cute. So literally you run around grabbing the money bags while a demon tries to catch you. And if you get all of them, then you exit.
And there's a pill too that you can swallow, that you can pick up, and that'll give you the ghost eating power.
Yeah, totally. I figured that's what happened. I ate the pill and I saw the ghost change color. I didn't get to eat him because he wasn't on the way to where I was going, but I figured that's what happened.
I did manage to eat it, and it just disappeared for a little while and then eventually showed up again at the bottom of the screen.
Nice. So this also really served to amplify how bad the whole eternity thing is, because it's like these trials are making you indulge in the 7 deadly sins. Like, they're not saying, it's not like fucking, like, it's not like a knight's, like a paladin's quest where you're supposed to overcome these sins.
You're actually...
where it's like, the goal isn't to not be greedy. The trial is to be
You are participating in the thing.
Yeah, which is cool. It's like, hey, you gotta do a bunch of sinning if you want to get here. If you want to get to the Demon Lord's castle.
Yeah, it's a very different take on it. It was really interesting. I kind of, like, part of me hoped that it would be the same for the other 2, but the other part was like, I need to get through this.
Yeah. I was not upset that the other parts were not as elaborate, because I was like, look, I'm enjoying this game, but also I need to go to bed. But yeah, so you go through all of them again. Sloth, anger, etc. I probably should know my 7 deadly sins, but I don't.
If you watch Full Metal Alchemist, you'd know what the 7 deadly sins were.
If I thought about it for 2 seconds, I would know them. I've been to church. I'm sure I could think of it, but whatever.
You haven't watched enough anime either. But anyway,
so the last one is lust, which is interesting because you end up going to a place that looks like the church, and Mag is in there, and I'm like, whoa, hold on, anime. Okay, lust. These people are sisters. Okay.
Ken was saying the same thing.
But I was assuming, I was like, okay, maybe lust means like desire.
That's what I was thinking too.
Not sexual desire, just like the thing that you want the most.
Yeah.
And it turns out that basically is how it is.
Yeah. Ken was saying like, this isn't lust. And I was like, there's lust for things other than sex. Yeah. Like, you can have wanderlust, for example. And he's like, I knew that.
I do believe that from a religious standpoint, the deadly sin of lust does specifically refer to sexual lust.
Right.
However, still, they decided to interpret it a little more broadly, which is fine. Because coveting, for example, which is not a deadly sin, but it is a regular sin, does encompass a broad variety of desires. So this is where we start getting a little bit of weird. I honestly think the storytelling fumbles a little bit here, not because I didn't understand what was happening, but I didn't understand what Senia knew and did not know.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Because at this scene, they do that thing. I don't play Life is Strange.
I have not.
No, I haven't.
I really want to, though.
so that game does this thing. Evangelion does the same thing where like towards the end, someone basically, you know how Evangelion is like at the end, it's like everyone like all these not fictional, all these like figments of Shinji's imagination are just telling that he's a terrible person. Life is Strange does that too, where it's like towards the end, it's like, oh, you're actually a terrible person, but it doesn't really earn it. It's like, I've played this game, I've been following this character. She doesn't seem like she's secretly a terrible person, but now you're trying to convince me that secretly she's a terrible person. It's weird. Anyway, this game does that too, where they're like, you actually are jealous of Mag and you want to be her and you have all these twisted desires. And I'm like, I wasn't getting that. But then also they vaguely mentioned that Mag had a real sister whose name was Nia, which is why she calls Senia Nia, which is weird and upsetting.
I said it was like if you get a cat that you name like Whiskers and then it dies and then you get another cat and you name it like Whiskers 2 or Whiskers Junior or something like that. Like no, give the new cat a name of its own. Don't just name it after the previous cat. That's weird.
Yeah. So, but again, the writing is a little weird here, so I didn't totally get what they were saying. But that's turns out that is true. But at the time, I wasn't totally sure what was going on. Anyway, it turns out that the person that you thought in this cutscene, you actually are talking with Mag, but she's being all creepy. So I'm like, oh, she's clearly actually a succubus, and she is, and you fight her. So then there's another flashback, and this is where the game's plot actually starts to really become a thing instead of just like you're on a quest and whatever. Turns out, there was a real Nia. It was her actual sister, and she was sick all the time. She had a literary disease where you just get sicker, and eventually it's tuberculosis.
I've always said soap opera disease.
Yeah. I always call it 19th century Russian literature disease.
Yeah, there you go.
So she has that disease, and she's going to get sicker and sicker and sicker until she dies. But then Mag hears that the power of eternity could heal her. So she's like, I'm going to go to the Tower of Eternity. Doctor, can you please stay here and take care of Nia? Someone's got to take care of her while I'm gone. But, and this is really neat, the doctor talks her down and says, you shouldn't go to the Tower of Eternity. That's a terrible idea. You should be with your sister until she dies.
How about how about don't do that?
Yeah, that's what she does. So what the game does not explain, but which is clearly obvious, is that obviously Mag felt bad about what she considered to be a mistake she made the first time around. So she's not going to make the same mistake twice, basically.
Right as you said she makes a mistake, Scarlett went, uh-oh, and I almost want to keep it in.
Oh my gosh, do it, yes.
Yes,
oh my gosh, baby reaction shot. That's awesome. So Senia reacts to this dream in a way that suggests that she, like, didn't know that Neo is real. And I'm like, wait, so is Nia real? Is the succubus lying? Again, it could be intentionally vague, or it could just be weird translation. I don't know. But just spoiler alert, that's all real. Then you fight literal death, which as Eli was saying was a pretty tough boss.
Yeah.
Yeah. What was his attack patterns?
I don't remember. Oh, he had a big scythe swing.
Oh yeah, and he did going across the screen all the way like lasers, like horizontal lasers.
Yeah, the lasers were the worst part because like they were constant, and so I'm like trying to get past all the lasers and kill the mobs and stuff like that. Yeah. And every single time I was slower than I thought I was, and I'm like, haha, I did it, I succeeded, and then I got owned by a laser.
Well, and if you attack normally, you get knocked back.
Yes, which it's funny. Early in the game, that was just like flavor. Like, it was just a fun little crunchy, snappy thing where you get knocked back to emphasize the power of your attack. But now it's like, oh, this is a major mechanic, actually. I have to pay attention to this and account for whether or not the knockback is going to knock me into a fucking laser. Mm-hmm. It's really cool how it's like, the game's like, yeah, this has been the thing all along. Why weren't you paying attention to it earlier?
Yeah.
So after you complete the 3 challenges or whatever, you go down the new path that is opened, and you see Mag, and I feel like this is Mag for real this time, because there's sad music, and I just did a Mag fake out. They wouldn't do 2 fake outs in a row, right? And yeah, this is a dramatic scene where you see Mag, and you're like, Mag, I'm here to save you, and she turns around, and she has dead zombie eyes.
Yep.
Which was established earlier, by the way, means that they're possessed by the power of eternity. Forgot to establish that. Yeah, so then you have a 2x dream combo, Bob. There's my requisite Homestuck reference. It wasn't even on purpose. I wasn't even like, hey, I'm going to reference Homestuck now. It's just like, that's the thing I say, apparently.
Yeah. Like almost all of my Sweet Bro and Hella Jeff references are just because I say, I told you, dog, all the time.
Yeah. So you have a dream about a time when you had a dream. And
it's like a dreamception.
Yeah, basically. So your current curse-induced dream, you're remembering the time when Nia dreamed about her parents' death that we already saw. So she dreams of her parents' death again, and she wakes up. And then Mag is there and comforts her, and they do, this is such a minor thing, but I made note of it. They do one of my favorite things in sprite-based games where the two characters hug, and they clearly have drawn a separate sprite of the two of, it's like a normal, like a single person sized sprite, like a rectangle, like 1 block wide, 2 blocks tall, of both of them hugging. It's great. Final Fantasy IV does it specifically in a really great way. I don't know, it's just cool. It's like they don't just have the two sprites mashed together. It's like, no, here's them hugging as one sprite. It's super cute.
Yeah, I love it.
Yeah, and then I wrote that there was a full-page splash, which was surprising to me because the game hadn't done that yet. Although I don't remember what it was of.
Yeah, I think it's the first time you see them hugging.
Yeah, it's probably them hugging. Yeah, because it's like super like tender moment. There's this sweet 5/4 music that reminded me of Yuki Kajiura, specifically her work for Dot Hack. So that was cool. Dot Hack Stein, the anime, not the game. Someone else did the game. So then the flashback's over, right? So anyway, so Mag, to recap, Mag actually, for the real Mag, did like knock out her sister and make her go into the dream. So it's bad emotions. She wakes up and she's talking with the fairy, and she's like, my sister will never become the puppet of eternity. And the fairy basically is like, okay, but what if she does? Like, way to be encouraging, fairy. And when she says that, Nia is seriously like, oh no, like, what if she does? This is terrible. I'm scared now. And it's a funny exchange, but in like in a good way. I like the fairy. You know, she has like 6 lines.
Yeah.
You fight the Dragon Lord. He also does just a zillion lasers. Then he absorbs eternity, and you're thinking you have to fight him again, like a second boss, or now he's even more evil and hard. And I didn't want to do that because I'm like, that was hard. But turns out it's just a cutscene. Yeah, so Mag shows up and absorbs the evil eternity energy, but then you try to absorb the evil eternity energy because you don't want your sister absorbing the evil eternity energy, and just a lot of sacrifices happening here. Everyone is like, no, you can't sacrifice yourself. I'm going to sacrifice myself. So it's cool. Let's see what happens after that. So this is where the game enters its in-game, basically. It's funny. I only have like 3 paragraphs of notes because, frankly, like, the graphics are awesome and there's a lot of weird puzzle stuff, but like not a lot actually happens. It's just like, here's the final dungeon now. So at this point, you learn what has probably become obvious to anybody playing. I feel like Eli, was the next flashback a surprise to you?
No, not particularly.
Nah. Yeah. That curse that we saw like 2 gameplay hours ago. Yes, that's the curse. That's why Magdalene is here in the tower.
Yeah.
Right. Magdalene Magaletta. Magaletta gave Senia a magical necklace, which you have equipped at the beginning of the game, and then you promptly unequip it because you have better stuff to equip, which is like. I love that. It's just like, hey, this extremely important plot item that was literally keeping a curse from killing you. Yeah, you unequipped it because you got one that gave you more HP. So she gives it to her, but it still would have consumed her eventually. So that's why Magaletta is here, is to save you from that curse that we've been seeing a zillion times. You get a new skill, which is called the Eternity Burst, where you make a bunch of dark energy show up and it wrecks everybody, which definitely seems like a thing that you should use all the time, and I'm sure there's no negative consequences. Right when you use that move for the first time, your cross pendant literally breaks. So that's also fine and is not ominous.
No, not a bit.
Honestly, if I was making this game, I totally probably would have put some kind of like meter where if you use the dark energy move too many times, you just like die of darkness. Which, spoiler alert, is I would have been ripping off of Breath of Fire Dragon Quarter, where if you turn into a dragon too many times, you turn into a dragon and kill everybody.
Wow.
Yeah, it's permadeath. It's great. That game owns. It's a Breath of Fire game where the goal is to not turn into a dragon. Yeah. But anyway, so it's like, wow, you sure are getting consumed by this dark energy. The final dungeon is the Sanctum that you've been seeing in all these cutscenes, this church area. But it's way bigger now, and it's a dungeon, and there's lots of evil wizards everywhere that do AoE attacks on you, and the music bangs. That shouldn't be a surprise at this point. Yeah, you do a bunch of stuff. It reminded me of Undertale. Remember the very touching scene towards the end of Undertale where you
don't say it.
Looks like
don't say it.
Don't say it.
Shit,
Definitely spoiling
Sam's
a future episode of this game.
Okay, you're right. This is not a plot thing. There's a point in Undertale where you go to a place that looks like a place that you went to earlier in the game. That's it. So the game does the same thing where it's like, oh, you know that church you've seen a million times? Well, this place also looks like the church. Yeah, so there's all this plot stuff like Undertale where you learn some facts, but they're not super important facts. It's whatever. You play a song on a piano, whatever. So you fight Magatha. That's her name. I legitimately thought that wasn't even meant to be a joke, and I wrote that. You actually fight her. You tell her to stop being, possessed by eternity, but she won't. So you have to fight her. How'd y'all feel about this fight?
I didn't get to that fight. I watched it on a Let's Play.
Oh, you didn't get this far? Okay,
unfortunately.
I'm on my own here then. It's hard.
Yeah. This is the movable tiny Magatha fight, right?
Yep.
Yeah. This one was super hard, but like underwhelming at the same time, which I loved because spoilers, there's 3 endings to this game.
Yeah. I actually didn't find it underwhelming. I actually thought it was the real final boss, and I actually love when bosses are the same size as you, because games, not just RPGs, but all games, they love to up the ante of the stakes, and it's like, this monster's even more giant than the last one. So anytime the final boss is just a dude, I'm like, hell yeah, this rules. Spoiler alert, Breath of Fire Dragon Quarter, the final boss, is a normal-sized dude, which is great.
And spoilers for Final Fantasy 15, but in a game where literally the plot and only plot is to go and like kill titans that are the size of mountains, your final boss is just a dude, and I really appreciated that as well.
Yeah, it's cool. At any rate, so you fight this. So the bosses in this game do this thing where they don't have phases where like they get harder at specific points where they like now they have a new move. What happens is they have an established move set the whole battle, but I feel like it's almost just algorithmic. It's like speed at which they throw out moves at you is inversely proportional to amount of health that they have. So it just gradually gets faster and faster and faster. And by the end, you're like, oh my God, there are so many things on the screen right now. It's so hard. And I'm too busy dodging them. I don't even have time to actually hit them. So the health's not going down.
Yeah.
Anyway, she's normal size. There's sad music playing, which is always great.
Yeah.
So you do a sad music boss fight. yeah, and you beat her. It took me a bunch of tries. And Senia's like, I'm strong now. I can protect you. And Mag is like, yeah, maybe you're right. Maybe you can protect me. But it turns out once you use the power of eternity, you can never leave the tower. And Senia's like, WTF, that sucks. And then Mag goes back into like, I'm being ominous voice, and she hugs her. This is a really tender hug. And then she's like, let's stay here and be together forever. I'll protect you forever. And then it shows her character portrait and her eyes are dead. And I'm like, are you kidding me? But then Senia, it shows her character portrait and now she has dead eternity eyes. And she's like, okay, let's be together forever. And that's the ending.
Yep.
And it's super depressing. It's just like, okay, they're in the tower and they're consumed by eternity. Wowie. At that point, I'm like, okay, how much effort is more endings going to be? Because I want to get more endings, but it's also 2 a.m. But also I'm really depressed, so I need to get more endings. Turns out extra endings are not a lot of effort.
Hopefully when you were trying to get not depressed, you didn't do ending 2 next.
Oh, well, ending 3 is also stupendously depressing.
Yeah, so. They're all depressing. And
like,
I actually...
ending 3 is like nihilistically depressing at least, and not just
That's true.
Like straight up sad depressing.
I'll have to ask y'all in a second.
I was going to say, I appreciate that there isn't a happy ending to this game because that's so rare.
Yeah, it really is. It really is. Even as people try to make games more and more like mature of a medium, they still very much play into like the whole like power fantasy thing where it's like, I'm playing this game. I accomplished the goal. Therefore, I expect to be rewarded by, on some level, succeeding in my goal.
Right.
You know, even if the main character has to sacrifice himself. So yeah, it is really weird how rare downer endings are, even in the most artsy-fartsy of video games.
Yeah.
So Nia arrives at this new place that she calls Peaceful, and it's just like a weird Crystal Palace thing. You do a bunch of weird crystal puzzles. They're not hard. So then you go to the Peaceful place, and there's a flashback, but it's actually not a flashback. You are actually at the Sanctum in Void Space, and you can play. It's playable, so you get to walk around. You go around to this graveyard, and you meet the ghost of the actual Nia. And you have this tender scene where Mag is visiting the real Nia's grave, and she says, hey, I met this girl. She has a name that's similar to you. I'm going to take care of her, not just as a replacement, but as a new sister. And I love this new little sister just as much as I love you. I hope you can be happy in the afterlife when I when I live with this new sister. So Senia seeing that makes her realize that, that she's not just a replacement Nia. Magdalena really does love her. It's a very touching scene. So then the game progresses, and it's essentially the same ending scene as before, but a little bit different. So in the lead up to the boss battle, the first couple lines are different. Instead of just saying, I'm going to save you, she says, I'm going to save you. Also, I'm going to confess my jealousy issues and tell you what my deal is and address this thing that's been coming between us. And Nia just like blurts it out. She's just like, by the way, here are all of my issues. And Magdalena does not have dead eyes at this point, and she's like, oh my god, like they have a touching moment where she's like, I never meant for you to feel that way, blah 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 blah. I love you so much, and they have this really touching thing. But then the power of eternity still takes her over, and you still fight her like regular, and then you beat her. And at this point, the dialogue, I made sure to pay attention. It is all like the same. It's like all the same dialogue, all the same everything. But then at the end, I forget exactly what happens, but spoiler alert, there's another boss battle. And
so what happens is is you start to like be all swirly darky stuff, and Magdalena looks like she's about to kill you type thing. She's like coming at you, and you can choose to push her away or do nothing.
Oh, and hold on there. Let's back up just a tiny second.
Okay.
Oh, just because there's I thought you were about to bring up the thing that I forgot. Even though that's not what you were going to say, it reminded me that I forgot it.
Okay.
The reason this is happening differently than last time is because Nia, the real Nia, fixed your cross. Yeah, which is very important. So the magical cross is now mended, which both has emotional significance, but also literally protects against evil curses. So is the real final boss before the important decision or after?
I thought you didn't fight her.
It's before. No, you do. The original.
I thought you don't fight Sprite Mag first.
Yeah, no, you don't. It just skips it.
Okay, that's what I thought.
Yeah. So Mag is about to attack you, and as Sam was saying, she sees your cross necklace, and that like snaps her back to normal, and she becomes normal again. And I didn't take notes about what happened here just because it just wasn't super clear / important. Just there's a couple lines of dialogue, and now she's evil again, and you have to fight a harder version of the boss. It's like, she saw the pendant, but it just didn't totally work.
So I think she sees the pendant, and that's when you have like your heart to heart, but she like fully succumbs to the darkness now type thing is the vibe I get from it, at least, even if that's not word for word what happens. That's pretty much what happens.
Yeah, it's almost like you almost succeeding ended up making her
worse,
even more consumed by the darkness. Yeah. So then you fight the for realsy's final boss, and boy, howdy is it hard.
Yeah.
At this point, I think in the previous boss, like the fake final boss, I think that's when I stopped doing hard mode. I started doing normal mode at this point.
Yeah.
I never did easy mode though, because I'm a stubborn asshole and I will not do easy mode, even when it is this early in the morning. So anyway, I'm doing normal mode now. It took me a bunch of tries, and one fun thing. You have to have that special pendant equipped in order to go and do this alternate path in order to start the boss battle. But fun fact, once you start the boss battle, you can totally unequip it and equip something more useful from a gameplay perspective.
That's awesome.
I thought maybe the game would be like, after you unequip it, like the attacks do a zillion damage, or it like mentions that you unequipped it because it doesn't give you the power of determination or whatever. But it doesn't.
Well, I wish I would have known that back in the day, because I just tried to make it happen.
Once you're in the battle, you can equip anything you want. To hell with that extremely emotionally important item. So you beat her, and then there's a fake out where you think you actually succeeded. So you don't have dead eyes. She doesn't have dead eyes. They're like, we did it. The place starts to collapse, because that's what happens in video games. And you start to leave, and you might even leave like a few rooms or something. I don't really remember. You leave. No,
you don't, just because of the ending of ending 2. You don't leave that room.
Yeah. So you start to leave the room, and again, but the game goes on long enough that you think we're actually good now. But then Senia starts having dark energy happen again, and you're like, seriously? And she's being consumed by it, and it's terrible. And then Mag turns around, and she's like, no, I'm going to save you once and for all. So she comes towards you, and then you get this horrendously difficult decision where you are controlling Senia, and you get to decide whether to allow Mag to hug you, or to reject her and push her away. And of course, it's pretty obvious to know that rejecting her would mean that you would get consumed by the darkness, and allowing her to hug you probably means that she would get consumed by the darkness. So me thinking, Senia's been really stubborn this whole damn game. Why would she stop now? She's been stubbornly self-sacrificing, right? So I chose to push her away. Wait. I'm sorry. No, I freaking didn't. No, I didn't. I don't. It took me a while to make the decision, so I couldn't remember which one I picked. But yeah, I know I decided to let her hug me, because I'm like, she's finally, maybe she had a change of heart. She's finally decided to just accept the love that this sister's been trying to give her this entire damn time. So she hugs you, and then like you get teleported out of the tower, and then basically what Senia doesn't totally fully understand, but us the player obviously fully understands, is that Mag is going to be consumed by the darkness anyway, which is the whole thing you were trying to stop. So they have this touching scene where she's inside the tower and you're outside the tower on opposite side of the door, and she's like, open the door, open the door, open the door, and she's like, no, I'm not gonna open the door. And then the tower like vanishes, and it says that she was there for like hours.
It actually says for an entire century, but it's being poetic, but like she never left, pretty much.
Yeah, so like like until the tower literally like vanished into nothingness, whether it was like a fucking week or whatever. She just didn't stop banging on the door for her sister. So then some time passes and you see her back in the church, and I'm thinking like, okay, she's learned a valuable lesson, right? Like her sister, her entire quest was for nothing. The whole thing she was trying to stop from happened anyway, and it's not like there was an evil monster trying to destroy the world. Like that, you didn't help in any other way.
No.
But her sister's finally dead. She learned, or not dead, but consumed by the darkness, is trapped forever. She's learned her lesson. She's in the church, and she just has to go on with her life. But no. At the very end of the story, she's like, I've got to save my sister. I've got to save her. I know she wouldn't want me to do it, but I'm going to do it. Even if I have to make a compromise with the power of eternity, which is very obviously evil at this point, I'm still going to do it. I'm never going to stop trying to save my sister. And that's how the game ends.
Yeah.
And like, oh my goodness, it's rough. She hasn't learned anything, and she's just going to continue in this destructive cycle of presumably, maybe she's going to go to the tower again. Maybe she's going to become even more evil. I don't know. But yeah, it's rough. I did not watch ending 2. What happens in ending 2?
So go ahead, Eli.
Yeah, no, you go ahead, because I just remember, like, she has to kill Margalita.
Yeah, so doesn't have to. So you push her away, and that allows you to take the full force of everything onto you. And Margalita's like, no, this is my baby sister. I don't want her to be an evil thing for forever. So the narration shifts focus, and it follows Margalita, and Margalita's like, I have to do blah blah blah. I have to kill her. Shit. She's going evil and all of this stuff. And so it's like it gets ready, and I'm like, am I about to have a boss fight where like I get to play as Mag or whatever? But no, Senia draws her sword. It cuts to like an anime splash page thing, and it's like, sister, no, stop. And then the sword in the thing turns bloody.
That's right. You hear this hacking noise, and all I could think of when they were playing was in the first Futurama anthology of interest, where Leela is like, I want to know what it's like to be more impulsive, and she ends up killing a whole bunch of people, and when she's killing Hermes, she's hacking into him, and he's yelling, "Is that my torso you're hacking off? It is my precious torso." Like, that was all I could think of as that was playing.
Yeah,
I have seen that, but I certainly would not have been thinking of it.
But like, it helped. It kind of helped with how depressing it was.
Yeah,
just to think of something funny.
And so like Margalita's narration like the whole time is just like, I still have to try. I still have to stop her. I still have to save my sister, until it fades to black and is dead and sad.
Yeah. That was it. I had forgotten you didn't...
Well, that's fun.
Yeah, you didn't take control of Senia. You just, like, you were watching it from Margalita's perspective.
So I really like how the game has a bad ending, and then it's like, do the extra stuff to get the real ending. And you're like, oh, so the real ending is going to be a good ending, right? Also, no.
Yeah, like the best quote-unquote ending is we can't leave, but we cured ourselves, so let's just waste eternity hanging out together. Like, that's a depressing ending, but it's the best of the three.
I guess them accepting their fate is better than just being in an endless cycle of self-torment. And I also think it's cool how, and this is also how Nier works, the first ending is very clearly like not the canon ending. Like the first ending is a fake out ending, but then out of endings 2 and 3, neither of them is more canon than the other. So it's like those are both the real endings, and it's whichever one you want, but the first ending is not. That didn't happen. Yeah, that's the game. It's a bunch of banging music, and then at the end you get real sad.
real sad.
The saddest boys. I was really, really impressed by how well done it was. Like, even with the translation problems, it was still pretty well written and interesting, and the gameplay was not what I expected from RPG Maker. it was much more engaging than your typical RPG Maker game. So I was very happy by that.
I was surprised at how serious business the bosses got towards the end.
Yeah.
I like at the end of which boss? Maybe the final boss, but maybe the first normal sized mag boss. Anyway, I noticed at the end of the boss that like my heart rate was like extremely fast, and I was like shaking. Which is, I love when you finish when you succeed at a hard part of a game and you notice that you're like, wow. I guess that was really intense.
It was either how intense the bosses were, or the culmination of all the low voltage shocks you gave yourself by trying to walk up on the keyboard.
I might have gotten some low voltage shocks by my broken keyboard. Yeah, good point. It's like I can't stop. I could just stop, but it's like freaking it's like Yu-Gi-Oh, where they're like, we're playing with this magic device where when your monsters get hurt, you get hurt, and it's like, you could not.
Yeah, just take that off.
You could just not.
That, right?
You could just not.
Please stop. You don't have to do this to yourself.
Yes, I do.
Then again, if I also didn't have to do this to myself by playing this depressing video game. So if I'm gonna make myself sad, I might as well also administer electric shocks.
But yeah. I'm glad you guys got to play this game with me. I remember when I beat it, I was like, I beat all 3 endings, I think, in the same day, and I just like felt bad for a while. And it's been up there on one of my like I want to say that Eternal Senia is one of the reasons that I like wanted to start this podcast and focus on smaller stuff, because like so far we've done Persona 3 and Rogue Galaxy, which like are both kind of up there. Rogue Galaxy way less than Persona 3, obviously, but like I want to play like Cosmic Star Heroine and this RPG Maker game called Skyborn and like stuff like that, because like nobody knows about this game, and it like it's it like sticks with you, and you want to like think about it a lot. And
honestly, if I think anyone listening to this definitely should just go download the game right now. I mean, it's free, first of all.
Yeah.
So like, even if you don't play it, just download it so that they get the downloads. Like, you should play it, but even if you don't feel like it, like just go download it. Like, support this team, because they're really cool and they did a great job.
Yeah, I liked it a lot. But that about does it for the week. If you like what you hear and you want to hear us do normal thingies, you can hit us up on Patreon at patreon.com/rpgbookclub. If you want to chat with us, we have a Twitter at rpgbookclub. We also have a Discord whose link is in the doobly-doo and on the Patreon and everywhere. And then we have merch at bit.ly/rpgmerch. And yeah, join us next week. We'll be back on track with Rogue Galaxy, and we can all talk about how hard that Digo fight was. And
God. Hold on.
Okay.
One thing this game has up on Rogue Galaxy that this tiny little indie game did right, and that big budget game did not. When they throw 2 bosses at you in a row, they just randomly just throw up a save screen. They don't even let you walk into a save point. They're just like, hey, cutscene's over, save, bitch. Yeah. And I'm like, oh, it's because there's another boss happening, isn't there?
Yeah.
Anyway, take notes, level 5.
Yeah, because like fighting Gale, spoilers, fighting Gale is hard enough to then have to do the hardest fight in the game so far by a landslide right afterwards. It's so dumb.
Yep.
Anywho, find out what we mean next week when we're back on track for Rogue Galaxy. For RPG Book Club, I have been Sam Allman.
I'm Elias Sailor Eli Warren.
And I'm Michael Spiffle Webbin.
Check out Sailor Eli on YouTube to watch him play Rogue Galaxy and also most of Eternal Senia. So, adios. Bye.
Bye.
Toodaloo, folks.